Hello crafters and welcome back to the ScrapbookPal YouTube channel. My name is Deepa from Designs by Dee, and today I'm sharing this beautiful card made using a few sets from the Spring in Kyoto collection from Spellbinders. So it is spring, we're finally seeing gorgeous blooming flowers, and I really wanted to share a really vibrant card. I love the idea of using greens and pink, so I thought it would look really good with this. So these are the products that we're using. This first set here is called Cherry Blossoms, and as you can see, you get these two BetterPress plates that press cherry blossoms, and then you get the coordinating dies along with a sentiment, bloom where you are. Now for the fan, I'm using the set called Fan and Bow, which is also in this collection. It's very pretty. It creates this beautiful Japanese fan here, and you can see there are two designs in this. You can punch out just the flowers, or it can punch out this other design with flowers and like a little more on it. I'll show you how you put everything together, and there's a little instruction thing on the back there. And then I'm also going to be using for the sentiment, the Crafty Hug sentiment set. So let's look at these cardstock pieces. I'm showing you my color scheme here. As I mentioned, the greens and the pinks. I picked out a deeper pink here, but I ended up using something a little lighter. I think for the spokes of the fan, I have a brown here, but I might use the blue. And then I've also got some matte gold cardstock for some accents. So you can see here you get this outline die basically that cuts out the pieces of the fan, and then you've got those little insert die pieces, and they're going to cut out the design. Now you can choose to alternate, you can choose one design or the other. I'm going to choose the one with just the flower, and there's only 3 of those, so I'll only be able to get 3 of these panels with the design. The other 4 will be cut out plain, and then I'll just have to put that die on top in order to get the pattern on the other 4 pieces of the fan. So you can see the washi tape comes in handy here. It lets me position those little inserts so that they're perfectly in the center as much as possible. And then I also use washi tape again on those extra pieces that didn't get the design cut out of it. Now moving on, I've cut everything out. You can see I've got the pieces for the bow. I did it in the darker pink and the light pink. I've got the little spokes for the fan. I did it in the brown and the blue. I'll decide later. I've got all of the outline bits that I cut just from the outline piece with the matte gold and the pink, and then also those deep green bits. So now we'll go ahead and put it together. As I mentioned before, there are some instructions on the back of the packaging, and you can see that you get that, that big piece of the fan, and then you kind of assemble the spokes and then each panel on top of there. So the first thing you're going to want to do is put those spokes in. Now I have the brown and the blue, and I'm just going to look here and decide which one I want. And I think I've instantly decided I'm going to go with that light blue. It kind of stands out a little bit more. I think the brown would kind of get lost in all the deep colors that I'm using. So all I'm going to do is, you'll see that there's actually like a little rectangle that's kind of imprinted on this die cut here. You can just add some glue there and then stick the spokes on. Now keep in mind, on this spoke at the bottom of that long rectangle, there's like a little dot that's indented in there, and that dot is basically where the spokes collect at the bottom of the fan. So what you want to do is make sure that you've got the part that doesn't have the dot in it that's going at the top, and then all the dots collect at the bottom on one. And you do this from one side to the other so that they can kind of gather one on top of the other. You'll see what I mean when it all comes together, when I've kind of put them all down. I'll start off putting a few, and I'll fast forward a little bit so you can see how it looks in the end, but it's basically just placing down these spokes. So you can see how it all came together, and you see how it overlaps nicely. So now that we've got that done, now we want to put the actual panels, or like the pieces of the fan, together. So I'm going to do it how it says on the packaging, but I'm also going to add an extra piece, which is that matte gold piece. So I'm going to start off by putting a bit of glue behind this detailed green piece, and then I'm going to put my pink piece behind that, which is a full solid piece, so you can see the pink through the design. And then I'm going to make sure that it's over top of each other pretty well. And I'll keep doing this for all of the pieces. Now for the gold piece, I'm just going to attach this panel on top in a kind of offset manner. And I want the gold to show to the left of the fan piece and at the top. And there's a reason why it's the left and the top, and it'll make sense when I put all of the pieces together and you see how it like comes together and stands out. So I'll go ahead and continue to do this for all the other pieces. Go ahead and back that pink up against the green and then put the gold behind that in that offset fashion for, I think there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, there's 7 panels. Okay. Now keep in mind when you do this, do it all and then put it together in one go, because it has to be put together sequentially in order to be done right. So I fast forwarded a bit here because I don't want to spend too long showing you how I put this together. I mean, well, how I got the panels going, but you can see here how I'm layering those panels one by one, and that's how it's going to end up looking. And the reason why I added that matte gold is because I want my green to stand out, because my background is also going to be the same green. So now that I've got all of these panels done, we're going to go ahead and put them together. I put one aside that looks like you can't see any of the pink out of the outer edge, like everything's lined up perfectly. And the rest of them, it really doesn't matter because they'll get covered up. So you can see here my first piece, I'm just using liquid adhesive. I'm going to stick that on there where that little compartment, or like there's a line on the first layer, the fan where we put the spokes on. So there's like an indented line, so you can kind of line it up and see where to put it. You also know that that panel, you want that spoke, that first spoke, to be in the center, and that's how you'll continue on. Now for the rest of the layers, I'm actually going to use some foam adhesive, and that's just going to give it more of a 3D look and help it pop up off of the card just a little more. You don't have to use foam adhesive. You could continue to use liquid glue if you wanted to. And you'll see as I place each panel, it's slightly overlapping the one before it, just like we did with the spokes. You can see the spokes overlapped at the bottom, right? In the, like where it meets at the point. So here, this is how we kind of show that the fan like is overlapping and opens up. It looks really pretty, and you'll notice on the instructions on the back of the packaging, it kind of shows you to overlap it a little as well, and that's what gives it that authentic, you know, fan look. So I'll continue to add each tile or piece of the fan in the same manner. I really found that using the foam squares helped a lot because I don't have to wait for drying time and everything, and you can just see it that everything just comes together so nicely. I was actually in awe with this fan when it was finished, and you see how that gold, that little trim of gold, just really causes the fan to stand out a bit and like highlights the green. I really like how that came out. So I did forget to add my bow, so I'm going to go ahead and just add a little bit of glue on the tails there. There's like a little portion at the top where you can see that you add, I'm using the lighter color bow, which is, it's got the 4 loops on it. So I'll put that one on first. And then you can go ahead and add the 3 loop, which is what I cut out of darker cardstock. You could keep it all the same color. You could use a mix of colors. It's really up to you. I chose the 2 different pinks because I thought the one pink goes with the detailed portion of the fan, and then the other pink kind of helps it stand out a little bit. So I'll go ahead and attach that to the bottom of the fan. So moving on, I'm going to start with the letterpress technique now using the cherry blossoms. So as I mentioned, there are 2 plates here, and I'm just going to take a plain piece of white cardstock, and I'm going to letterpress these 2 plates onto them. So I'll go ahead and put my plates here in the A2 portion of my platform, and then I'll attach my cardstock to the platen. I always forget, it's the chase. I think this is the chase, and then the platen is like the clear piece. So I'll attach the cardstock there with some of the yellow low tack tape. And then I'm just going to use BetterPress black ink. I'm going to keep it simple. Now remember, if you wanted to, you could always foil this using the Glimmer machine and any of the foils that are available out there. It glimmers perfectly, just like it BetterPresses. So you can see that the pressed image is gorgeous. Now, I will mention one thing here. I did a little bit of a mess up, and that was that I started inking at my image a little too quickly. Let the image dry or hit it with a heat tool to make sure that that ink has set. You'll notice that as I'm adding ink here, the ink is smudging just a little bit, the black, but you know what? It ended up giving it a nice soft look, so I just went with it instead of redoing it. So Again, if you don't want that, make sure everything is dry before you start adding your ink. I'm using some Pinkfresh Studio Cherry Blossom and Peony ink. You'll notice that just simply adding it with the brush just makes these cherry blossoms stand out and look gorgeous. You could color this in with some Copics or whatever it is you feel that you want to do. But I felt that just adding some ink with the brush was sufficient, and I added the two colors, which gave it a little bit of depth, or the two tones. So I'm using some smaller Pinkfresh Studio blending brushes here to add my ink, and you'll notice it's about the right size for the flowers, but for the leaves and the branches, I'm gonna need to do something else. So you could use Copics to color that in if you wanted, but I wanted more of the soft look, and I wanted to add like the yellow in the little anthers of the flowers. So I just grabbed some colored pencils, and I'm adding some yellow to the centers of the flowers there where the little anthers are the stamen. It's kind of sticking out. You'll see the little dots. I find that using colored pencil kind of shows up better on top of an inked image versus the Copics, unless you're kind of blending the colors. So I went ahead and did that, and then I also added two colors of green for the leaves in order to create a bit of variation, and then some brown for the branches in order to finish this image off. Now, once I'm done coloring everything in, do keep in mind that the BetterPress set that comes with this, it has the coordinating dies to cut this out. So I'll go ahead and line those up and cut those up using my die cutting machine. And you can see in the end it's gorgeous. Now, I did think that I might have to color in the edges green to match the background that I'm going to be using, but it came out, and I didn't feel like I needed to do that. So you could do that if you wanted to. You don't have to, as you can see from this card. So now that we got the cherry blossoms all cut out nicely, we can go ahead and work on our sentiment. I'm using the Sending Love and Hugs sentiment from this one. I absolutely love the scripty font on this. So I got this, I think I showed you this one in my video from last month. It's very pretty. I'm gonna just use some gold foil, and I'm gonna hot foil it on some green cardstock using my Glimmer machine, which I'll do off camera. And just like most of the BetterPress sets, this one also has the coordinating die to cut this out. So I'm going to go ahead and line that up and then put it through my die cutting machine off camera. Now, I've mentioned this a few times before. People have asked me why I don't do the die cutting on camera. It's one, tedious, and two, I have the larger machine, so it's harder to show that. But I do have a smaller machine here, so I'll show you that there. So moving along, I've got an A2 size green, that same deep green color piece of cardstock, and I'm going to go ahead and add some splatter to it. Some gold splatter. I've linked some gold watercolor ink that's available in the ScrapbookPal store in the description below. So if you want something of this kind, go ahead and check the link down there. But I'm just going to go ahead and splatter it and let this panel dry. So once the panel is dry, and only once it's dry, I'm going to go ahead and cut 1/4 of an inch off the bottom and the side, and that's going to give me a nice 1/8 of an inch border around the edge. I do want to put it on top of another deep green A2 size card panel, and I want to do this with a bit of dimension. So I've got my craft foam here, and I'm going to cut it down to be just a little bit smaller than that panel that we already cut a 1/4 of an inch off. And I'm just going to adhere it using my strip glue, my tape runner. And then I will adhere this panel onto that green piece of cardstock. So you'll notice I did add the splatter just to the one main center panel. You don't have to add it to both. I mean, I guess you could, but then it kind of defeats the point of cutting that border, right? So I've gone ahead and attached this, and it creates just a nice gorgeous backdrop for the rest of the pieces that we've put together already. So you can see here I'm playing around with where I want things to go. I've chosen to use some foam adhesive for my fan, a little bit on that large die cut piece of cherry blossoms, and then I'm actually having the bottom tuck underneath, so that I want to be flat. So only one piece of foam near the top. Then I'll add the fan on top of this and kind of slip in the other cherry blossoms behind that bush. And it kind of looks nice, like you have the blossoms coming out of the fan. And I thought, like, that was kind of the look I was going for. So now I can add my sentiment. Again, I've added some smaller foam squares on here. I love this variety pack. You can find this in the Scrapbook Pal store. As I mentioned, everything I'm using today is linked in the description below, so you can find all the stuff there. And those foam squares are a joy because you get the larger and the smaller foam pads, and I love that variety. Now that I've got the actual card put together, I'll go ahead and put it on top of my card base. This is just a regular side folding A2 size card base. I'm going to make sure my panel is on there so that you can't see any of the white. And it just looks so pretty already. Now to make it look even prettier, we're going to add some gems. I've got some Pinkfresh Studio blush gems, and I'm going to go ahead and add those. So I'm adding a few of them in the background. I like to add an odd number. And then also on the fan, I've added some dots there just below those flowers. And I'm going to add the smallest gem that they have on each of those little panels of the fan, just to give it a little bit more interest. And that's basically my card for today. So I think it turned out really nice. I like the green and the pink, and I hope you do too, and you're inspired to create something similar yourself. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the YouTube channel, and I hope to see you guys again next time. Bye.